Okay, Friday, November 18th. This is an end of the day and end of the week SPY recap. And today on the daily chart, we ended up with a red day, a two-up red day, where we kind of gapped up towards the pre-market high, sold off for most of the day, and then at the end of the day, kind of came up a little bit, still with a red bar from the open, but an up bar from yesterday's attempt to break out of a range. So in terms of just the bigger picture at the moment, if we go to the weekly chart, you can see here this was just a big, almost nothing week after a strong green week the week before. It was more just consolidation, and actually in terms of the SPY itself, very tricky to trade day to day to day. I was looking at the 5 days of the week in terms of the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th. And the first day it was definitely it was easy to kind of take it didn't really start out up, but it eventually went up a little bit, then it sold off. Then we gapped up big the next day, but immediately sold off. The next day was just a consolidation day, a little bit to the downside. Then we gapped down big, but immediately went up, and then we gap up big and then immediately go down. So in terms of structure and taking advantage of it with the SPY, knowing we were kind of inside of a range most of the week. We had a failed breakout, but then we didn't really continue up today. It was tricky to trade. I don't think you really didn't get caught, in any crazy trades, because the opening price action never really got you in. It just kind of went the opposite way of what you were expecting. And even today, I made a midday video that showed that after it came down here, I didn't really see that red to green move developing. And I said, if you wanted to play a short trade, if it came up to the midway point and failed, this was the type of afternoon trade, just a quick move down to kind of yesterday's midpoint was a possibility if you didn't, there was no real reason to be selling here. Now, on some individual stocks, I kind of went back throughout the week myself, and I kind of listed all the stocks I traded on this tricky week in the SPY, and I see most of my trades were short trades. Coinbase, Tesla, Meta, and even today, if I really would have been watching closely, stocks like NVIDIA were great shorts right out of the gate below the midpoint of the prior day, taking advantage of the first bar down. Same thing with Tesla, same thing with Netflix. These were all below midpoints of the prior day, heading lower, even though they were kind of gapping up on the day. So there was another opportunity to really take advantage of short trades today. I happened to be focused on the long side more just because of my analysis, and I still was able to take advantage of a trade like Target that went up. And I looked at other stocks. There were other ones like Merck, I think, that went up. So if you were looking at the right charts, you could have all week definitely had some decent opportunities, but in terms of the overall market, like I said, on the weekly chart, we're just pausing. So what that means going forward, we're now coming closer and closer to the end of this month that had a two-up target to these highs, and we only have 8 days to go. So, and now we have like a holiday kind of week coming up, and to me, if we don't really rally strongly to those highs, we could be failing to reach that target by the end of the month, and maybe December at that point starts lower. The first sign of that, of course, will be the midpoint of this bar, weekly bar next week. Do we actually start below it and have a two-down week and maybe start targeting these lows? That's very possible. Or is this just a big pause that continues higher? So since we have kind of a small bar on the weekly chart, it'll become, I think, a little easier to kind of figure out what happens next. Either we're going to have some kind of a two down that continues, or two up that continues, or since it's just a small bar, you can have the up move that fails and goes back to the halfway point of that bar. That would be a great reversal signal. Same thing, if we start down a little bit but can't really reach these targets and we come up through the midway point of that bar at some point in the week, then you can get comfortable going long, because at some point, this little small bar is either going to continue or fail one way or the other, and we don't know which way. Like I said, time's running out to reach these targets, but it's still possible if we have a strong up week next week, and maybe the market, that's all it wants to do from these lows. It's had about 5 weeks up, and now maybe it's time to get back in line with a bigger picture trend to the downside. Hard to say, but at this point, I'm still going to keep the bias to the upside until we move below the open of this month and turn this month red, and that's at I thought it was at a purple line, but maybe I moved that. So anyway, we'll just keep an eye on when that month, as long as it stays green, we'll stay biased to the upside. But you're going to have to go day by day, and then you might get tricky scenario. We're still in a bit of I could still see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days kind of sideways action here. So we know one way or the other we have to break out, and the market's very choppy in this area. So at this point, I think it's more just following the individual stocks that look best within this environment. But you can see, there's no doubt the trend is still up. So let's just see, next week it's going to be key to watch how price moves relative to this small little bar, and with a slight bias to the upside, but knowing, a 2 down, you got to play that as a reversal, and then kind of monitor if we can, how if that occurs, how strong a sell-off may be. So we will see what happens. And again, the month now is kind of, you got to keep in mind the more and more we come to the end of the month, and the more and more we're not reaching our monthly targets that were expected, the more then on a weekly chart we might get a reversal. So this is the first potential sign of a weekly reversal. We'll just see if it follows through to the downside or not, and kind of just judge how things open on Monday.